I remember we were in this room and Seth was like, you need to be all in if you're going to get everything out of this year. And I remember thinking, okay, I think I see the way to being all in and I just can't go. Like, I know the way is vulnerability and I'm not ready. Hi, I'm Kennedy Richardson.
I am Tyler Richardson.
And we are from Tennessee. So we were on our annual Christmas trip to New York. Like, we go every Christmas. And we were just opened our phones. All of a sudden, I had seen like a couple of pictures of Olive Heiligenthal. And I remember this moment really clearly.
Yeah.
And seeing what was going on. And I like look up to Tyler and like, we're in the middle of like a crowded New York coffee shop and I'm like sobbing. And so I think we spent the most of that trip like just really impacted by someone we didn't know, but feeling really called and stirred to pray. You know, we lead worship, or at that point, we led worship every weekend of the year at some church, and we sing about those things all the time. Very rarely ask, or not, I don't know if I ever, for resurrection, but felt very stirred. And we know that story didn't have the ending we had prayed for, but it was the beginning of us kind of having this moment of, okay, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of more of the Lord that we're not exploring, that we're singing about, but we're not actively living.
Something about the Olive situation had shifted something in us where it kind of made us, in the conversations we would have, think to ourselves, if the Lord is looking on his people and there's a line in the sand and certain people are standing on certain lines of the topic, do we feel like we're standing on the right side of the line? Really, in us, it was like, what can we do to put ourselves on the right side of the line? And honestly, that was just a practical step for us to be like, we just want to be in the room with the people that we know have put their names or reputations on the line in this situation, no matter how it turns out.
That just wouldn't leave our hearts. We ended up booking tickets to the Healing Conference.
And so when we're there, you're starting to see a back getting healed, and you're seeing somebody waving their hands, a testimony of their knees that have been going for like 6 years or whatever. All of a sudden, they can move them without pain, and you're starting to see the tears flow. And I remember Bill like taking off his glasses because his tears were becoming so heavy. And I remember in that moment being surrounded with so much faith and gratitude, and it feeling so pure, and it also not feeling professional. I think sometimes when you're in an environment where you're not necessarily used to God moving, but you are familiar with God moving, sometimes the familiarity can breed an atmosphere that you're not as impressed or as grateful because it's the 100th back you've seen healed, you know, in like the past month. And being in a situation where there was still so much awe and wonder with what God was doing. That was the first time we were looking at each other and having like a sincere weight of, do you feel like there is a story for us here?
The Healing Conference was January 2020. And so as we know, a few months later, the world shut down. We had this sobering moment of like, okay, well, if at any moment everything can just come to a screeching halt, why wouldn't we move? So we like got our computer, sat in our front yard, filled out our applications, and Tyler was brutally honest in his interview also.
I wouldn't say I was trying to not get in. I'd been through a very interesting season in good and bad ways, and it basically put me in a situation where I was like, I want you to know who Tyler is that you're getting into, instead of 6 months down the road be like, wow, we really wish we would have known A, B, and C. You know, I'm a PK by nature, so I think a lot of it probably all mixes together, but it was so healing for me to talk to my advisor, because as I was unloading, I naturally, just from experience, was expecting his eyes to widen, his tone to change, and instead, he is not shocked, he is not blushing, he's not intimidated, he's just listening to me. By the time I'm done, he is like, I am so sorry this has happened to you. I'm so sorry you've had to carry this. For that to be what I was introduced to really opened the door to so much in our year.
Well, I guess we're moving to Redding. If we get in, we rented our apartment via Facebook Marketplace.
And then we were even having conversations even on the drive, because so much of it was unknown. Like, we had even taught in ministry schools. So us leaving all of the things we were doing at that time to be a ministry school student, it was kind of like, okay, if it's bad, we'll just leave. There are worse things in life. But it was also a little bit of an anticipation because there was so much of the unknown blended in with things that we had seen the few months prior of just what was available there that we didn't feel like we could get somewhere else.
Yeah. When we came to first year, it was we were not super familiar with BSSM. And we had our very first revival group. And I remember that Seth gave a message about being all in. Like, the faster you're all in, the faster you're gonna encounter the Lord. I grew up in the church. I'm like second generation pastor. And my background prior to when we came here was that I had worked in a pretty, I guess what I would have labeled it at the time, excellence culture. My experience was that it was very dangerous, to be really honest, because you would either be disqualified or something just, oh, we thought you were this person, but now we know it's this, so you're off this roster. That kind of thing, very dangerous. So I remember we were in this room and Seth was like, you need to be all in if you're gonna get everything out of this year. And I remember thinking, okay, I think I see the way to being all in and I just can't go. Like, I know the way is vulnerability and I'm not ready. Like, I can't do this. And there was a girl in our revival group named Lydia.
A few people had said a few things that were wonderful, but when she stood up, it was like, oh, no. Like, she just broke through for our whole group.
Yeah.
What actual vulnerability looks like.
Yeah, she was like, I want to have friends. I want to be a part of something. I want to speak up, like all these different things. And it was our first meeting.
Yeah.
And so that was that's how the snowball
set
started.
off our whole year, 100%.
Particularly in first year, I think we came expecting to learn a lot. I would describe that our entire year was unlearning.
Sometimes there would be moments, either in our past or whatever, where leading worship was a little bit more like a job. So we need to make sure we do our job, that nobody has complaints, that we didn't hit a wrong note, that we didn't do something out of character or embarrass anybody. And here we would have leaders that would say, you need to just push beyond what you're comfortable with. You need to push beyond what you're used to. And then we were always met with such a celebration of, wow, you did such a good job trying. But getting used to that, I think, was very new for us. But then I started realizing the fruit everywhere.
But I remember specifically in first year when we had moved to online, we were having a lot of our sessions on Zoom. And Haley was telling the story of her encounter. The biggest thing she was afraid of in her life was disappointing her leaders. Essentially, like, I would do anything for the Lord except disrupt my leaders, or I would do anything for the Lord except do anything that would come across as me like taking over. And I remember sitting in the bath sobbing, realizing she had articulated what was my greatest fear, and just having this weeping moment of like, Lord, this is a crossroads for me. I think I would do anything, but I do have limits for self-protection, or like, I don't want to look bad, Lord, I don't want to do these things. And having to be like, it's going to be a journey unraveling that. This is what we're doing. We're going all the way. And I think in third year, through even leading worship, it's been a journey of coming to the terms of like, okay, Lord, I want so badly to have the affirmation of my leader, or to have like someone be like, wow, that was powerful. But realizing what I need is your affirmation. I think from the bathtub moment of like, I can, walk with you into something where maybe it's scary or not a place I want to go, to now being like, okay, when I'm going, if I have your approval, God, if I have your smile, then we can go. And so having a lot of like labels removed, a lot of unlearning, a lot of excellence, just unraveled, and being allowed to be raw, or being allowed to be vulnerable, so that we could get to who God originally designed us to be, and then build from there.